is Ryan Hicks, and I'm going to talk about Twin Peaks Season 3, Episode 9. This is The Chair. Again, my purpose is not to explain what everything means, and I think that's one of the wonderful things about Twin Peaks is that things don't have to be explained. They can just exist for what they are. And so I'm just going to give you a few of my thoughts on what I saw. What I've been doing when I've been watching Season 3 is I've watched it with no interruptions, like had all the lights off, had everything quiet, just so I could really focus on it. And then I'd later have to go back and pause it and make some notes and stuff like that. But really, really wonderful episode in episode 9. So let's get into it. When we see Dougie at the Las Vegas Police Department, he sees the American flag and starts to remind him, obviously this is Special Agent Dale Cooper, who's very much a patriot, very patriotic, and the woman with the red shoes, I think that represents Audrey. That's reminding Dougie Cooper of Audrey, and again, it's all these little awakenings that are happening that will probably, I would hope, bring him back, all these little things that I remember. Later in the episode, we just see that Evil Cooper checks to see if the hit was done on Dougie when he calls that guy that's working behind the computer. Speaking of which, this is kind of a side, but there are a whole bunch of product placements in Twin Peaks. He's behind a IBM Lenovo thing, like very clearly products are in view, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Maybe that's how they were able to finance this wonderful season, but just kind of curious because I know David Lynch has been on record for being anti-product placements, but it's kind of funny that they are so deliberate, but that's cool. Anyways, when he's behind his keyboard, he's checking to see if the hit was done on Dougie, and I believe he says not yet. And so we can see that Evil Coop is behind this. He's the one that was behind framing William Hastings, killing William Hastings' wife, blaming it on the lawyer, blowing up the car of William Hastings' secretary, the murder of Ruth Davenport. I'm sure we'll find out how that's Briggs' body with Hastings' head. But anyways, we can see that this clearly is Evil Cooper that's behind that. He also calls a hit on the officer who double-crossed him, and then a double hit in Las Vegas, and I can only assume that's Janie E. and Dougie. I love the scene when we go to Garland Briggs' house. Briggs' wife said he gave her detailed instructions for the day that there'll be a day that they'll come and ask you about Agent Cooper. Give them this. This is the chair, and one of the things that's really nice is that Bobby's mom says, you were a very long way from where you are today. It's really cool because that tells us that Briggs knew that Bobby was going to be okay. He saw this life for you. Your father never lost faith in you. And in spite of all this, murder mystery and finding things out, we still see some really nice humanity, and we see Bobby Briggs really growing into a great man. Yeah, what's going on with Bobby is really, really cool. I'm sure that'll pay off in the fact that it's Garland Briggs that we're talking about, and the fact that he's asking him to come to this Jackrabbit Palace. I'm sure that will pay off too. So it's really cool to see Bobby redeem himself. My favorite part of the episode was when they're in Buckhorn and all the agents are there and they're about to go into the morgue, and the police officer tells Diane she can't smoke in there, and she goes, it's a fucking morgue. I mean, obviously Laura Dern is probably one of the best parts of this season, but that was really cool to see. We see her get the message around the dining table. The conversation is lively. Interesting. Some people have theorized that is that Evil Coop working with her. I'm not so sure. Some people pointed out that when Evil Coop texted it, it was like lowercase and there was punctuation, whereas when she gets it, it's all uppercase. Whether that's significant or a continuity thing, I guess we'll see. Around the dinner table, the conversation is lively. This is why I take notes. A really cool thing is when the officers bring them up to speed, we find out a lot of information. So We find out that Hastings' wife was murdered. Saw that. We found out that Hastings' secretary died in a car explosion. That was something that Cooper told that mechanic-looking guy. I remember when the one where he like squeezes his face. He does that weird thing to him in episode 1, 2, to blow up the car of his secretary. So we see that actually did happen. And then we find out that William Hastings and Ruth were producing a blog about an altered dimension. Today we entered what we call the zone, and we met the Major. Major was 42 when he disappeared. Major Briggs would be 72 now. Cooper knew Briggs and was the last to see him. Why the ring that said to Dougie from Jane E was in Briggs' stomach, we don't know, unless that was a clue, that was something to tie it together. I guess we'll find out. I'm curious because I could see a lot of things like, okay, well this makes sense and this makes sense, but I'm not sure why Briggs had the ring in his stomach. You know, it's interesting they talk about Dougie, that he was like manufactured in 1997, and I know on the website that William Hastings, which actually exists, which is so cool. I read that it was registered in November of 2016, so that's cool. That it was created in 1997, so I'm sure that there's some sort of parallel there too. Jerry's in the woods, and we hear this voice, "I'm not your foot," which is interesting because it almost sounds like a child, and I don't know why it would do that, or if it's just the writers messing with us. They go so much on that Jerry's in the woods. I'm kind of wondering if he's in that spot that is Jackrabbit Palace, and he's going to observe what happens, and that's going to mess him up because he's on some sort of trip. Or if in fact there's something else going on with Jerry that we don't know about. It's easy to think of him as just a comic character and write him off, but perhaps something really is going to happen out there. We know that there's a lot of mysterious things, a lot of bad things that happen in the woods. Whether we'll see Jacoby out in the woods too as Dr. Amp, I don't know, but we're definitely going to the woods for some sort of confrontation. When Bobby and Truman and Hawk come back to the police department, Truman asks him to open a window. I don't know what that has anything to do with it, but I noticed that, and it's interesting that there seemed to be no reason to open a window other than that. But Bobby obviously knew what the object was, how to open it, and he also knew the location. So it's all things that seems like Briggs left specifically for his son to one day be able to put that 253 yards east of Jackrabbit Palace. And on the paper it has the sign above the symbol for the lodge with a red circle beside it. We see that little, I don't know what you describe it, I think it's like the face of the mother that we saw in episode 8, where it like spewed that cream corn and out came Bob, but that looked like what it was above the lodge. Whether that's the mother of the lodge or something, you can call it mother. And I do think that that mother was the one that massacred those people that came from the glass box. But how that had anything to do with it, who owns the building, who's behind all that, I speculate it's Audrey, but we'll find out. And ask him, put some soil from Jackrabbit's Palace in your pocket. Time 2:53, 10/1, 10/2, so those are dates, I guess, October 1st and 2nd, and Truman says that's 2 days from now and the day after, so that tells us we're at the end of September. This place near where our station used to be, so again, that's that station out in the woods. If you remember back to, I think it was season 2 of Twin Peaks, that Briggs came to Cooper and said that part of his job that's classified is he monitors transmissions from deep space, and mostly it's like garbage, but very clearly it said Cooper, Cooper. That's where that paper came from. And again, that message came from deep space. I suppose that this is this alternate dimension, that this is going to tie in. An interesting aside is that they've used that because I did hear that Lynch and Frost had developed some plot lines for season 3, and if that Cooper, when they included it in season 2, if that really had to do with like Doppelganger Cooper, if they were going to do that, I don't know. I guess we'll find out, but it's kind of a cool continuity thing for that. It's almost like Lynch and Frost themselves saw into the future, kind of like Briggs did. Yeah, Cooper, that's what the transmission came from deep space. Uh, um, we've come up to join you, Diane, while Albert is indisposed. I would assume Albert is doing an autopsy, just like he did of Laura Palmer. Um, and he's finding out some more stuff that we'll probably find out in episode 10 from his thing. The search for the zone blog talked about that, an alternate dimension. It's real, he says in his interrogation. I do a lot of reading. We met the Major. Ruth was very good at uncovering hidden records, and if we went to a certain place at a certain time, we would enter the dimension and make contact with a certain person. The Major was hiding there, hibernating, as he said. Other people were maybe going to find him, but he wanted to go to a different place, so he asked us to give him the numbers, coordinates. He told us to go to a secure military database, and we found them. No, Ruth had them and wrote them on her hands so she wouldn't forget them. So we know that Ruth is really good about uncovering secret documents, so she was able to get Briggs these coordinates. He identifies the Major, he signs it, and I think it dates at 9/20, which means the timeline is different from, they say in Twin Peaks it's 2 days from now, which is the end of September, and this is, I don't know if that means anything, or maybe that's just misread what he wrote, but it looked like 9/20, which would be September 20th. Anyways, he gave him the numbers, and he started to float up as he said some words. Cooper, right before his head disappeared. I'd never seen anything like it. It was beautiful. And then Ruth was dead, and I told her, and I woke up, and I was in my home. Did the Major kill Ruth? No, there was many people. Why can't you help me, please? Then here's the hum of the Great Northern from the lamp in the corner, like that kind of hum. Mesmerizing tone, like a monastery tone that we've heard some quality or some otherworldly. It's wondering why he says that otherworldly sound. It's like a little wink, I think. Beverly, I can't do this. I don't know why that is. You're a good man. Girl has a rash under her arm. So that's Sky Fiera playing that. It's probably something to do with the cocaine that they're bringing in. That is really bad. It's messing everybody up. It's messing all the young people up. I would assume that Evil Coop is behind that. He's a drug dealer, and that he's the one that's responsible for bringing this stuff in to Twin Peaks. I'm sure all those threads will tie in what they have to do with anything. We'll see. So that's episode 9. Loving it. Can't wait to see where it goes. You know, and that's one thing that I'm really enjoying, is not that they have to explain every little thing, or they have to pay this off, or do this, just seeing what that is. Another thing I forgot to mention is that Johnny Horn had an accident in this episode where he like ran into the wall. We know that I don't want to say there's something wrong with him, but he's different, obviously. And that Sylvia gets really upset that somebody let him out, and he runs full speed and decides to, you know, go head first into the wall. What that'll have to do with anything, it's hard to say. Does that have anything to do with Richard Horn? You know, people are automatically assuming that it's Audrey's son, that's Richard Horn, that Evil Coop impregnated her, and that seems likely, but that's part of the mystery, is finding all this stuff out. So we'll be posting some more stuff soon. Hope you enjoy this, and have a great day.